Welcome to Domain 3, Section 3.3, AI Lifecycle Phases. In this session, we will walk through the full life of an AI solution, from planning and data, through building, testing, and deployment, to operation, and finally retirement, and the risks to manage at each stage. Why does this matter beyond the exam? Risk shows up differently at every phase of an AI system's life, and catching it early is far cheaper than fixing it late. Understanding the life cycle lets you ask the right questions at the right moment and recognize that everyone involved shares responsibility for a trustworthy result. Let's set the frame. The AI life cycle runs from the moment an organization adopts a solution for a business problem all the way to decommissioning it, and it closely resembles the familiar system development life cycle. A key insight is that risk looks different depending on where you stand and when you look. Some risk is latent early on and grows as the system adapts, and a developer who releases a model sees different risk than the deployer who applies it to a specific use. Everyone involved shares responsibility for a system that is trustworthy and fit for purpose. The first phase is plan and design, where you articulate the system's concept, objectives, assumptions, and requirements, and perhaps build a prototype. This is where you define clear goals and success metrics, document the business use case, and engage stakeholders early to surface needs and constraints. This phase is also where you run an initial risk assessment, hunting for bias in data or algorithms, planning mitigations, and laying a foundation for data governance. Prototyping lets teams validate ideas through quick iteration, catching problems before full-scale build. Done well, this phase becomes the blueprint for the entire life cycle. The second phase is collect and process data, and since data quality directly drives a model's reliability, this is critical. It begins with gathering data from many sources, obtaining proper consent to avoid breaking privacy law, and then cleaning it by removing duplicates, errors, and inconsistencies. A vital part is checking completeness, quality, relevance, and timeliness, and documenting the dataset's provenance, how it was created, where it came from, what it contains, what it is meant for, and how it has been maintained over time. Good documentation here is what gives the whole system transparency and accountability. The third phase is build or adapt the models, transforming data into actionable insight. You select an appropriate model or algorithm, then calibrate and train it, an iterative cycle of testing and tuning to sharpen accuracy. Two things matter especially here. Explainability, so you can understand how the model reaches its decisions and build trust with stakeholders. And designing in automated event recording plus human-in-the-loop oversight, so a person validates the model's decisions at critical points, blending human judgment with machine efficiency. The fourth phase is test, evaluate, verify, and validate. Verification checks the model was built correctly to specification, while validation checks it actually serves its intended purpose with accurate, reliable output. This involves several techniques: model testing against benchmarks like accuracy and recall, stress testing with extreme cases, comparative analysis against baselines, bias and fairness checks, and scenario analysis. A standout practice here is AI red teaming, where you emulate real adversaries to find blind spots and weaknesses, both in the base model and at the application level. Whatever the testing reveals should drive fixes before production, with any remaining risk documented in the risk register and the solution authorized for release through change management. The fifth phase is make available for use, or deploy, which means moving into live production. This starts with piloting in a controlled environment as a proof of concept, then ensuring compatibility with existing and legacy systems to avoid disruption. It also means giving clear deployment instructions to any third parties or downstream deployers, maintaining detailed technical documentation that doubles as evidence of compliance, and managing the human side through training, communication, and monitoring of user experience. The sixth phase is operate and monitor, a continuous process of keeping the solution running while systematically evaluating its performance and quality. You need mechanisms to assess both the intended and unintended consequences of the system's actions, confirming it stays aligned with business objectives and ethical standards. Establishing a quality management system with ongoing documentation, audits, and updates helps maintain compliance and build trust. The seventh and final phase is retire or decommission, which concludes the life cycle. Retirement usually happens when a solution becomes obsolete, a better alternative emerges, or ongoing risk assessment finds the risk now exceeds appetite. Once the decision is made, create a detailed decommissioning plan through change management, covering data migration or deletion, system disentanglement, and continuity of operations, with clear communication to stakeholders to minimize disruption. Let's bring it all together. The AI lifecycle moves through 7 phases: plan and design, collect and process data, build or adapt models, test and validate, deploy, operate and monitor, and retire. Each carries its own risk, from bias in design and data, through explainability and red teaming in build and test, to compatibility in deployment and obsolescence at retirement. And throughout, every actor shares responsibility for a trustworthy, fit-for-purpose system. You now know how to manage AI risk across an entire life cycle. Every important topic and idea from this session is covered in the multiple choice questions on RooCloud.com. Before you move on to the next session, work through the chapter-wise questions there, because the phases and their risks are a favorite exam theme. Practice first, and then move forward with confidence. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.